Guys, let's get to work right now. We'll start with the Celtics and the Nets game this week. I don't think any of us are surprised because the Nets were undermanned, that the Celtics won. But, Bob, what amazed me was how they just absolutely mopped the floor with Brooklyn. I mean,
I was there.
Yeah, so just feel it, because to me, the statement isn't the win. The statement is, yes, the Nets had Kyrie and they didn't have Durant, but the statement was they just absolutely demolished them. Your thoughts?
You know, I hate it when my first reaction in the first period was, I hate this. I hate to start when you start like that because you know it can't continue. You say to yourself, you know it can't. But like suddenly I remember it was 7-4, and then that's as close as they ever were. And then it was 21-3. 21-4 after that. So anyway, so it's 46-16 in the first period, a 30-point spread, and it won ridiculous. They made threes.
Yes.
They made their first 8. You know? What do we have?
26-54 in the game.
They made their first 8 while the Nets were 1 for 12, I think. Kyrie was 0 for 7 to start on threes, you know? And so, you know that. Now, what I took away, and we saw that, once again, the importance of Robert Williams. Robert Williams had 2 early putbacks. He had another dunk on a feed. He that was hidden. Nobody mentioned it. Not going to be the game story. You know, I'm telling you, it mattered, and it just reminds you of what his value is. So that was the other thing. And the other, Brogdon. You know, Brogdon was terrific, and I mean, but once again, you mentioned it, Gary. The Nets didn't have Durant. They didn't have Simmons, and they didn't have T.J. Warren. And the Celtics pounded them, and you don't want to read too much into that. That game, it didn't tell us anything. You know, in the big picture, I'm still warning people: if the Nets are healthy in the playoffs, nobody's going to rub their hands with glee and say, "Oh, goody, goody, we're playing the Nets." I got news for it. So But what I
took from it, Jeff, and Bob's right, is, you know, maybe I was looking for a silver lining or something, but the Celtics didn't mess around. Like, you know, it was we got to take care of these guys and just like, boom, get rid of them. Because we've seen the Celtics, God, they lost to Orlando, and I know they were undermanned. Marcus Smart has been hurt, but, you know, they dropped games to Orlando, Miami, they didn't look great. So I just took it as a positive that they went out and they did the job they were supposed to do. Boom, boom, boom. That's it.
Yeah, that's very true. And the other guy I should just cite who played an excellent game is Derek White. And, he went to the hoop. He made his threes. He played well. I mean, so many who didn't play well, right? You know, the other principal players, they all played well. That's why, you know, so that was fine. But when you're making threes like that, you know, it's the game. We all know that. That's the game. And they made them, and it was insurmountable. But you're right. They did take care of business. There were a couple of times I thought when they were up that there were a couple of sloppy possessions, and they took a couple of me first shots, but they didn't. It didn't get very far. They you know, I took a picture. There was a timeout, and the score was 127-78, I think, and I wanted to see a 50-point spread, but just in case there wasn't one, I took a picture of the scoreboard at plus 49 for posterity. So that turned out to be the peak spread, 49. I wanted to see them get up by 50. You don't see that too often.
How much do we think that, you know, some of the Celtics were even more motivated to run this thing up when it was kind of Kyrie by himself out there?
Oh, I think so. I would think so. You know, and by the way, he's the only net that showed that any spoke in the game was Kyrie, frankly. You know,
how bad were they booing him last night?
Oh, it was moderate bad. Moderate. No, it was, it was there. Every time he touched the ball, to start the game, it was there. And when he went out, they cheered, they booed the sarcastic cheers and all that. It was, but, I don't know what now. That again, I was up in the halo. I didn't hear anything. I don't know what vile things were said, and there probably were. Unfortunately, we have that element in our crowd. We can't deny it. Too many people say it. It's there, but I can't verify it because I was up in the halo.
Do we think the Celtics see the Nets again in the postseason?
I could. Why not? I don't know the pairings yet, and I'm just telling you, if they're healthy, I'm sorry. And that's who isn't. Look, everybody, you start with every team if they're healthy, right? Philadelphia. But remember, let's just go back to last year in the playoffs. Middleton didn't play.
Yeah.
That was a very big bonus for the Celtics. So, and if they go on anyway, we all know that. It was a fun night. If you bought a ticket and that was your one game and you wanted to see the Celtics, that was a fun night to see the Celtics.
Okay, but guys, let's face it. I think as the season progresses, and we all know that, Jeff, the big denominator is health, that it's Philly, Boston, Brooklyn, and Milwaukee. Yeah. Miami isn't there. Cleveland isn't there. Some of these teams that will show us something, they're not there. Those are the big four. And if they're healthy, any four of those teams, in my opinion, could win the championship.
No,
I think so. I still don't know if I count on Philly to win the championship. I just don't know. I'm not quite there yet.
I'm in on them if they're healthy. If they're right, I'm in on them because I'm in on them if they're right.
I just don't trust them, mentally more than anything. Am I crazy? James Harden's never won anything.
Yeah. No, I
don't know. Giannis is a winner. They've already done it, right? The Nets have had guys on their team that have already done it. I know there's a time when everybody does it for the first time.
Yeah.
But Philly's not even gotten there. I don't know. I could see Philly maybe getting the Eastern Conference Finals, but I don't see them winning it all.
I don't want to mess with Embiid. I know that much.
I'm with you on that. I get real quick, Jeff. What do you think is going to be the final story for Simmons? At the end of the day, how do we look at him? Because I keep waiting for this. Oh, he's great at assists. He fits the mold perfectly. He'll dish the ball to the other two. And are we going to be hearing this for the next 10 years?
We always thought it was going to be eventually Ben's going to start to shoot threes, right? Eventually, the right coach is going to get with him, the right player, and something's going to click where they're going to say, hey, Ben, if you're not playing unless you shoot threes. That's never going to happen now. I've resigned myself to the fact that it's never going to happen. This is the Ben Simmons we're going to see. And unfortunately, if we see this Ben Simmons for the next 5-10 years, he's a good player, but he'll never be a great, great player.
It's not just he won't shoot threes. Sometimes he just won't shoot, period. Get in there and turn around and finger it out to the corner. Everybody does that, but he above all, he's going to go down in history right now for me. And I've said this before, it's going to, because nothing's changed. He's the oddest player of consequence in my entire experience. And I would go so far as to say in the history of the NBA, he's the oddest, weirdest player of consequence because he has two great skills. He can see the floor and he can defend. But his unwillingness to become a normal offensive player at this stage of his professional career is perplexing and makes him the weirdest, oddest player of any consequence in the history of this league.
But, Jeff, he's regressed, hasn't he? Because in college he scored, right?
He did. He scored. He shot. I don't remember how many threes he took, but he took a few. And you just thought, again, and especially with the coaches he had, that's the part that really baffles me is that Brett Brown and Doc Rivers, two coaches who are elite with people, not good, elite, like the best of the best, couldn't figure this kid out, couldn't figure him out. And, if they couldn't, again, I'm not sure anybody can. He'll go down as an elite defender, an elite rebounder for his position, an elite passer. But if you can't score in this day and age in the NBA, you can't be.
Oh, and by the way, you got to get him off the floor in the last 2 minutes. For sure. He's shooting 44%, I think, last I heard from the line.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens in the playoffs, right? How do you hide him again? How do you do this?
That's why I said categorically, I wouldn't want him. You're not going to win with him.
All right. So the big news this week, as we sneak over to the NFL, has been Tom Brady. For the second time that he retired, and this seems to be the real deal. Personally, I think it is the right time for him. I think he recognizes that he can't do it alone anymore, that he can't bring a team to the next level. And oh my God, he's 45 years old. Who could expect him to? I actually got emotional a little bit when I saw his social media post.
He did this a year ago. Why would you get emotional? You went through this a year ago, Gary.
Oh, you're so tainted, Jeff. See, this is why you are so tainted. See, this is the thing about this is the benefit of being laid off from the media. I'm a stay-at-home dad, and I do this because I like you to. Okay, that's the honest to God's truth. All right. And I've become more of a fan, and it's awesome. Maybe Bob can speak to this because he's retired. I mean, semi-retired. I mean, you're right, Jeff. I'm not tainted anymore. I mean, I look at the guy. I saw it. Look, here's the thing. He's the world's greatest football player. He's not the most perfect human being. They're not perfect. I mean, Tommy Heinsohn used to tell me this all the time.
I'm not saying that.
I gotta get this out. Tommy Heinsohn used to tell me this all the time. He used to say, Gary, he goes, they're not perfect. He goes, they have bad days. Some are smart, some are dumb, some are emotional, some are not. You know, they're like, he's not perfect. And you're right. So he's retired again. Like, so what? But this time I believe it. I believe it this time. You know why? And then I'll let you speak. You know why I believe it? Because I think he knows he can't do it anymore the way he wants to.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I've covered Brady plenty over the years. I like Brady. Like, I'm not a Belichick guy at all. I respect him, but I don't like Bill Belichick. I don't like being around him. I don't enjoy it. I think he's an asshole to the media when you don't have to be. I think Brady's been brilliant with the media over the course of his career, and fair and honest and smart and all that. I just feel like we just did this. We just did it a year ago. I tweeted when he retired again. I said, can't we just rerun everything everybody said a year ago again?
I don't understand this attitude, frankly, Jeff, because I think that my reaction is he said he's not going to do this a second time. There's no way. There is no way he's going to do this twice. And you know, he said he's done. I think
he's done it twice. No, what I'm saying is
he's not going to do it again. No, he's done it once, and this is. I mean, he's unretired once. He's not doing that again. He's not. This. I take him at his word this time. That's all.
Yeah, I think Jeff does too. It's just we don't need to go through the pomp and circumstance again, which he said in his post.
Yeah, he did.
I'm not going to write a letter. I'm just going to say it. I'm done.
Yeah, I mean, I really take that as word. You know, so
I mean, of course, NBA.com did this thing comparing Brady to LeBron. You know, when you talk about the title, I don't know if there's a comparison. I mean, Bob, who is the Tom Brady? To me, Tom Brady's the best football player in the history of the NFL. I know he's not the fastest. I know he didn't have the greatest arm. I know he's not Walter Payton or Jim Brown or Barry Sanders, but to me, he's the greatest player ever. Who is the Tom Brady of, who would you compare him to in the NBA?
Well, I mean, the thing is that their careers overlap almost 100%. That's why it's an interesting comparison to me. It's because,
but again, LeBron was so physically gifted, Bob. I guess that right.
That's why I'm back up. All I'm saying is I'm not interested in dissecting this thing. I think the only reason it's worthy of discussion is that they overlap. That's all. Brady was essentially a rookie in 2000, essentially a rookie in 01, and 2 years later comes an 18-year-old kid, and I mean, so they've had these 20 years of parallel careers, and one in football, one in basketball, and they're at a high level, and they're both being discussed in terms of being the GOAT in their respective sports, that's all. But I mean, who's better? I'm not going to get into that. That's it. It's crazy. There's no, they both, Brady's got more rings. Okay, fine. That's fine. And then that basis alone, you give them the edge. So, and we all know that their progression of how they got to where they are was different. Remember what I tell you, LeBron. Turning point was losing in 11 and shying away from the ball and being too deferential and not recognizing that he's got to be the best player on the floor and take charge. And once he learned that, he started winning championships. Brady never had that problem. Brady didn't have that problem from day one.
Well, they also came up different, Bob, right? I mean, LeBron was anointed as the guy at 14 years old.
Cover of Sports Illustrated, it's a whole. He's a product of his times. He's the ultimate AAU pup right now, except that he's shed all the bad stuff that comes with it eventually, and he did get rid of it. It took him. Brady didn't have that problem. Brady had another interesting thing though. His career in Michigan was certainly controversial at the time, and with the competition with Henson and everything else, and he comes in at the 199th pick in the draft, whereas LeBron comes in one of the handful. By the way, this is another theory of mine. One of the handful. You don't need much more than the one hand of players in the history NBA basketball, who were ultra hyped and lived up to it.
Right.
Most of the truly great players were better than they were thought they were going to be. Exhibit A, Bird, even Magic.
Michael.
Michael, Exhibit A, right, because Michael was the third pick in the draft. You think if they thought that, as good as Olajuwon and as logical as that pick was, we all in retrospect, they would like to have a do-over. Who wouldn't, right? So Michael. And the one other example for sure, there's two. One was Wilt Chamberlain when he was supposed to be, he's everything he was supposed to be coming out of Overbrook High School in Kansas. And two is Kareem. The ultimate, the greatest achiever, the greatest basketball player ever in terms of the three levels: high school supremacy, college supremacy, NBA dominance. He's number one for the overall basketball career in the history of the game, because Russell was nobody in high school. Nobody. Barely recruited by San Francisco. Okay, so he doesn't get the high school thing. Kareem, this is one game. When he lost a game, it was a national story when they lost to DeMatha. Everybody knew who he was if you knew anything about basketball. And then he goes to UCLA. He's the only three-time champion. Would have been four if he could have played as a freshman. We know that. So anyway, that's discussion. But I'm way going overboard here. The only way this Brady LeBron thing to me is interesting is that, oh wow, they were parallel. Their careers overlap. That's all.
Bob, we love it when you go overboard. Check out Screen Time, movies, streaming, and everything in between with us, Gary Tanguay and Drew Young.
We watch what you watch, so watch us wherever you get your podcasts, or you can subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Yeah, and we're pretty easy on the eye.
Yeah, no, we're not.
Speak for yourself. Screen Time, movies, streaming, and everything in between. Jeff, to me, it's Jordan, and I think you could speak to Jordan's high school career where he was cut. He didn't make varsity. And Jordan, like Brady, carried that chip on his shoulder forever. I think one of the elements that kind of hurt LeBron is he's a great player. Please do not take this as a criticism of LeBron. But LeBron, to Bob's point, was never disrespected. So I don't think he really had that chip on his shoulder. And I think Brady and I think Jordan had that chip on his shoulder. Because when they were on the field, when Jordan was on the floor, Jeff, not a nice guy. No. A killer. Brady was the same thing. Yeah. Brady on the field is not a nice guy because they felt disrespected to the end.
What about a little bit of a comparison to Steph Curry, who had a chip in his shoulder, right? Who wasn't told how great he was his whole career. And obviously Steph's not going to go down as the GOAT, but he's the GOAT of all shooters. No question. And Steph was so cerebral as well. Like Steph can see the court.
Like Brady.
Right. Brady's so smart. He didn't have the best arm in the world, the strongest, but it was so accurate. Steph's so accurate. There's some parallels there between him and
the cerebral thing. The thing that Brady did that you're going to have to take my word for it because I don't know that there may be documentation in print too from the time. I'm not sure. Okay. It's 20 years ago, but I immediately identified him as a pup from the Montana litter, that this was the style of quarterback he was, and actually turned out to be Joe Montana to the max. That's what he was. He's not mobile. Was never mobile, but he had that sixth sense about where who was coming from behind him. He had extraordinary pocket presence without being tremendously mobile. It's a rare gift.
You see that now. Hey, you see that now when you watch Mac Jones even more, don't you?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
How good his pocket presence is because Mac has none.
Yeah. No, all right, guys, to wrap that up, Bob, I do want to get to, and then Jeff is going to talk Booker in a minute, but you want to do your Damian Lillard.
Yeah, I got to give you, first of all, let's say if he's not player of the month, they should just disband it.
No kidding.
I'm going to rattle off. This is since January 14. You ready? 36, 40, 44, 25, 24, 37, 60, 30, 42, 42. That's for an average of 38 points a game, gentlemen, the last 10 games. This is one of the great shooting guard runs we have ever seen. What he's in now, and it's being buried because they're not. The team is, had a little flourish, and But boy, is he playing extraordinary basketball. I just want to, give him, and he's got to be player of the month. I mean, at the least. Anyway, that's all. That's all.
Jeff, we'll give you the stage with Booker now. He's coming back. The Suns right now sit in the 8th spot. There's a log jam there in that spot out in the West. They're 9 out. Is he enough for the Suns to make a run?
I mean, I don't know. He's been out for more than a month with this groin injury. They're 8-11 without him. They can certainly make a run and get into that, I don't know. I think they're a game out of 5th place. So you can make up ground pretty quickly in the West right now. I just don't know. My bigger question is, does he come back at 100% from the groin strain? Number 2, is Chris Paul past it?
That's
Chris Paul past it.
Thank you, because we're not sure. I was ready to write him off completely. Had a tremendous game a couple nights ago. Big game. Had an old-fashioned Chris Paul game, which I didn't expect to see at all this year anywhere. So I'm right on the verge of saying it's over for Chris Paul, and he plays a game like that. I don't know how often he can.
But that's the thing, Bob. That's the thing, is how many of those does he get? Number 1. Number 2, when we started this pod, it's right, who's healthy? Well, Chris Paul's never healthy through the entire playoffs. We've seen this story over and over and over before.
And one of the recurrent things, that I learned a long time ago about aging players is they may have these throwback games every now and then. Bird was like that the last year. He had, and he was still good, but every once in a while he reminded you who he was, Larry Bird. But for the most part, it was not the same level that it had been, in the years. But and there was he stuck a 46-point game in once on a Sunday, and then at the end, But and Paul, that may have, maybe the game he played 2 nights ago, whatever it was, is going to be his pinnacle of the season. We don't know. He hasn't shown that it's in him to do it. So I don't think they're a factor. I think
the window closed.
Yeah, I don't think that. It's too bad.
It's a quick window. If that's the case, that was the shortest damn window we've ever seen.
Well, it is, but look how old Paul is. To me, that's the thing. What Bob says. I mean, when you have an older player like that, Jeff, come in, you got to win now, right? I mean, you got to be able to get it done in a year or two, kind of like the Celtics when they had KG, Ray, and Paul. I mean, look, they had to win. They had a 3-year window, and it's a good thing they won the first year.
Yeah, and Ayton's been good this year. Again, but when you have Ayton as your number 1 guy,
right,
the last 5 weeks, you're in trouble. Okay, now you get Booker back, but you're right. Like, and I love Bridges. Like, I think they got some good pieces, but ultimately, if your point guard is kind of a shell of himself, which Chris Paul's been for the most part for this season, and numbers notwithstanding, to me, I find it hard to believe they're going to put any sort of consistency to be able to run through the West. And although, again, you look at the West and you're just like, who are you scared of?
Right.
Why can't Phoenix beat them if Chris Paul is healthy? I think the West is going to be, again, it's not great, but it's very, very interesting and intriguing when we get to the playoffs. Again, can Golden State go on a run? The Lakers, I don't even know if they're going to be in the playoffs, but Clippers, can we get healthy Kawhi consistently? Playing every game. Sacramento's been fun. I mean, they're the story we're not talking about enough.
Yeah, you're right. My guy had a huge game last night. My guy.
Oh, I know your guy.
My guy had a huge game. I said, by the way, okay, I think I would put Golden State as good as Chip. It's right here. I'm calling Golden State right now in the West.
It's hard not.
Assuming, once again, like everybody else, assuming they're healthy.
They're healthy.
But they're the 69 Celtics, my friend. I'm telling you.
Right. That's a good call. As we wrap it up, Bob, I know you had some thoughts on the All-Star game.
Well,
February 9th, just to set it up, February 19th, of course, is the All-Star game, going to be in Utah. There, as we've mentioned before, there's different elements of the format where players are selected, combination of coaches, fans, starters have been picked. But at the end of the day, before the game, it's going to be playground, and they're going to go, I'll take you, I'll take you, I'll take you, which I think is going to be fun. But you had some thoughts, Bob, on the All-Star game.
Well, just that the evolution or devolution, if you will, of the All-Star game.
Good word, Bob. Good word.
It's had its ups and downs. It started out, in 1951 here in Boston, and the All-Stars were honored to be All-Stars. And that first decade, they played that game they played to win. And then right through the 60s, the games were played to win. They were proud to be in it. They wanted to play against the best. And then in the early 70s, it deteriorated. And there was an awful game in Chicago in 73. I think the score was, but they didn't even score 100. It was terrible. And then it got better. And by the 80s, I'm telling you, saw some great game. Overtime game in Seattle, like 87, was a tremendous game. It was hard fought. When Bird's first year, when he hit the first three in the history of the game, that was a tremendous game. And now this is, I could not possibly care less about. I'm not going to watch that game. I won't watch that game. I'm not going to watch it. Why waste my time watching a stupid Dunkarama and 168, 164? No, I don't want to see that.
I'd rather watch the NFL Pro Bowlers play out.
Why? So it's too bad now. Now the All-Star Weekend thing, which began in '86, which was originally a great idea, and all right. One more thought. All right, the dunk contest. After Spudwed won it, they should have disbanded it.
Right.
Because who cares after that? And if they're going to do it, should be a height limit of 6'6". Why do we care if a 6 to 7, 10 guy or 7 footer can dunk? That's absolutely.
Hey, Sean Kemp was fun to watch dunk.
The last interesting one was when our boy jumped over to Kia. Okay,
yeah,
that
Blake.
was.
I was going to say Blake Griffin.
That was fun. Over to Kia. Yeah. But seriously, once Spud went on.
Imagine if you told the kid now, hey, that guy, Blake Griffin, that guy today jumped over a Kia. They'd be like, what?
How about the way Blake? He's now the fan's pet. He got off the bench and the crowd started roaring. And I kept thinking, I
love Blake.
He's got to be a good guy because the demeaning aspect of people rooting for him, like he's that high school guy, the last guy on the team that never gets to play, and he gets in the game, and everybody wants him to score when they're in the game.
We should get Blake on the pod.
He was that guy. He was that guy last night.
Get him on.
The crowd was they want him to be the cherry on the Sunday in a game they're winning by 45. Wow, not a lot of guys' egos could take that. I got to give him credit.
Yeah. Well, I think, Jeff, you know him very well, I assume. When you look at his Kia commercials, his sense of humor is off the charts. Yes. I mean, just the stone face and
dry,
self-deprecating.
Yes.
So, I mean, Bob's right, but I'm not surprised he has that attitude based on what we've seen.
I'm impressed. I really am, because he's been to the mountaintop, in the sense.
I love that signing. I think I told you guys before they signed him, I think we talked on the pod, and I said Blake Griffin is a guy they should go after, because I think he'll be a good locker room guy for Tatum, for Jalen, some of those guys. Not going to give you heavy minutes, but we saw it in the playoffs last year. To me, there was one play where he just dove. He came on, hadn't played in probably weeks. They put him in the game, Nash did, and he dove on the floor and just the whole game. It was a hustle game. And I'm like, all right, if he's willing to do that, to me, Blake Griffin will be perfect for this team.
Go ahead, Bob.
Before we go, I want to give props to one other guy who is living up, doing exactly what he can and should do, obviously knows who he is, and is an asset on a certain level. And that's Luke Cornett. Luke Cornett is playing the role of backup center well in this team. He's not I'm just saying, I give him credit. He's absolutely a good fit, a good piece of the overall puzzle on this team. That's all.
Yeah. And my final note is back to Blake. I think that I generally don't cheer for guys to get a ring, he's been around forever. I hope he gets a ring. But to me, it's like, look, you got to earn it. You've had a great career. You made a ton of money, so you didn't get a ring. So what? I kind of hope he gets a ring.
Yeah.
I kind of That's fair.
Here for that, right?
Yeah, I kind of hope he gets a ring. Gentlemen, thank you very much as always. I just want to let some people know you can check out my movie podcast, which is not at the level of the Ryan Goodman Tanguay Along for the Ride Zoom yet, but we're getting there at CLNS and Screen Time on YouTube. Gentlemen, talk to you later.